And we are up and running and live in the Chicagoland region. And Barrett, you've just returned from a very tropical environment, so it must have been kind of a shock when you descend from the mid 70s, early 80s down into the upper 30s and down into the 20s overnight. So, how are you feeling now?
I am pretty good, although I did have a little bit of a cold last week when I arrived back. It is a big temperature difference, and but the trip to Costa Rica was really a beautiful, playful spirit retreat. We had 17 people down there, all letting go of fear and exploring the idea of the miracle. So and we had a lot of fun as well, a lot of time to enjoy the beautiful nature, the beautiful scenery, and really beautiful food. My co-organizer, Cheryl Kaplan, is a chef, and she prepared lunch and dinner for our group pretty much the whole week. So it was amazing in all respects. And I think people were leaving feeling like they had deepened their path significantly and were ready to keep going forward on their healing journey.
Yeah, that's kind of cool because I would imagine that for at least a few of the people who showed up, this was their vacation for the year. They were taking that break from the 9 to 5. And that's something that I think a lot of people could give consideration to is that instead of taking just a vacation that is running away from the current reality that you're doing combat with, perhaps finding an event of this sort where you can share a Course in Miracles experience and really come back empowered to to confront all of the craziness that it seems that we're having to adjust to.
Well, yeah, that's the other big thing that's unfolded since you and I last talked is the excitement of our U.S. election year and the kind of sometimes feels like a crazy uh, you know alternate universe that we're living in.
Uh, I have, as a result of staying, on top of my meditations and my study of the Course, I've really, really managed to get to a very comfortable place with this current set of circumstances because I keep pulling myself back every time I feel that urge to respond to things that I think are wrong by looking at it from the perspective of this is a play, this is a movie, these people are reading a script. So trying to change their minds is irrelevant. Trying to change the events is irrelevant. The whole point is to step out of the dream and thereby giving yourself and everybody else the freedom to be restored to their own divinity. So I think that's very, very much going to be the theme over the next couple of years for us, is that when you start taking this as being real, it is going to engulf you and consume you because there's always a villain, there's always a hero, there's always a cause. But all of this is a script. And once you can take those 3 steps back and not try to fix the dream from within the dream, but to go to that place of forgiveness and surrender and living in that affirmation that God is in control and that you cannot be harmed in any way, shape, or fashion by the events. That's how we conduct ourselves during these extreme times.
Yeah, and I think it leads us really beautifully into the section of the course that we're going to be talking about today, which is chapter 18, section 4, which is entitled The Little Willingness. And really, I think what I'm hearing you say, Chris, is that we need to have this little willingness to turn our perspective over to the spirit within, this little willingness to relinquish our way of looking at the world to this possibility that maybe there's something else, maybe there's more to this than meets the eye. And that expression reminds me of a Native American saying, which is, "May we not see with our two eyes, but with the one eye that is the heart." And I think it's a beautiful expression. It helps us remember that there's always a way to see what we're looking at from a loving perspective. And it might not be immediately apparent, but once we remember that that's our goal, it's much more readily available to us.
Very, very true. So, as we're starting to look at this, the holy instant is the actual miracle itself that alters the extremities and brings everything back to a balanced state, at least for the individual who is exercising that holy instant. And it says the holy instant is a result of your determination to be holy. It is the answer. The desire and the willingness to let it come precedes its coming. You prepare your mind for it only to the extent of recognizing that you want it above all else. And that really is the key line, I think, in this first paragraph, is your desire. Do you want to be in fear of the political situation that is unfolding in front of us? Do you want to be in fear of the loss of clean water? Do you want to be in fear of drones and chemtrails and all of these other extremities? Because that's what you are electing by resisting the holy instant.
Yeah, exactly. And whenever we're putting our sense of happiness or peace on anything in our exterior circumstances, we are saying that we are disempowered. We are at the effect of something beyond our control, and that ultimately our peace can be taken away from us. And what we're coming to see is that those things are all impossible. Our peace cannot be taken away from us, although we can give it away. And the things in this world do not really have the ability to, have us be happy or be sad. But we do give that ability to the things in the world. And the good news is that once we realize that this was a choice that we made on some level, then we can make another choice. We can decide, no, this isn't really what I want. What I want is the peace of God. And that decision, when made consistently and persistently, will always lead us to the experience of the peace of God. So that becomes our ongoing practice. And I think this next paragraph has an interesting point too. He says, "Trust not your good intentions. They are not enough. But trust implicitly your willingness, whatever else may enter. Concentrate only on this, and be not disturbed that shadows surround it. That is why you came. If you could come without them, you would not need the holy instant." So I think what he's saying here is it's not enough just to say, I want happiness. What we have to do is at some point we have to realize what in us doesn't want happiness, and to be willing to see that, but then to eventually relinquish our belief in that. So we can't just say like a positive affirmation again and again and again to try to get to feel happy. At some point we need to allow the false ego shadows to come forward and then to subside, because we see that there is no truth in them.
That's very true. And, the other aspect of this is that good intentions, boy, that's a perfect description here of all the adventures that we allow ourselves to be drawn into. I mean, you have good intentions by joining a protest line or signing a petition or instigating something that you believe will create a change for the better. And all of your good intentions are wrapped up once again in grounding you very solidly in your ego. And the ego is that one thing that is designed to keep you in a state of ongoing damage control and panic prevention, and all of the other little misadventures we get launched into. So it really is a very black and white set of circumstances that we're looking at here. There is no middle tone. There are no gray shades. You're either 100% by abandoning your ego's agendas to accept the transformation, or else you're back in the briar patch being chased by the fox. And, then it's run, rabbit, run.
Yeah, yeah, and I like that idea that it really is one or the other. That we can't have a little bit of peace and a little bit of fear. We're actually always choosing one thought system or the other. And as we get that, we get more and more willing to see what it is that we're choosing, and to say, I've done this for days, years, decades. I know that the result is not happiness. And in a sense, what we've done is we've built up this body of evidence. And the Holy Spirit wants us just to look at this evidence and to see which of these choices we want to keep making. And as we do that, we get better and better at saying, I don't want that one. And the good news is that as we let go of the ego, we always do find that we step into more and more peace. And now it may be a journey, and it may be times where things feel really hard or feel really challenging. But in the long run, peace is inevitable because it is the truth of what you are.
Yes, and this is not a journey that you're taking on your own. That's the thing that that is revealed to us a little bit further down in the text here. It says, "The holy instant does not come from your little willingness alone. It is always the result of your small willingness combined with the unlimited power of God's will. You have been wrong in thinking that it is needful to prepare yourself for Him. It is impossible to make arrogant preparations for holiness and not believe that it is up to you to establish the conditions for peace. God has established them." Boy, that is very illuminating when we look at, once again, the desires and the grandiosity of the ego. The ego's always got this set of plans that entail, an outcome where you're the hero of the dream and you've rescued everybody and saved the kingdom. And that's really not necessarily the way it is designed to unfold. And we're being drawn back again from that ego and being reminded that God is the one, and the Holy Spirit is the one that actually makes things happen. And reducing yourself down to the least common denominator in the ego's world is what removes the blockage for your magnificence to actually unfold, and for the brilliance of your inner light to become a beacon in night for those around you.
Yeah, and that really reminds me of the symbol that the Foundation for A Course in Miracles has, which is the symbol of a lighthouse. And the lighthouse just shines its light out into the darkness. And the people who are ready to have some help on their journey, to have a symbol to guide them into shore, will respond and use that. And I think that this image really, that you're sharing, Chris, helps us to see that each of us can be that lighthouse. Each of us can be that source and symbol of light that benefits everyone in our life. So as Jesus continues on here, he says, "Would you first make a miracle yourself and then expect one to be made for you? You merely ask the question. The answer is given. Seek not to answer, but merely to receive the answer as it is given." So what we want to do is we do want to be open and receptive to the truth within us. But what he's saying here is that we don't often realize that we're a lot of the times asking for help and then also answering the question, because we think we know what is best for us. We think we know what will make us happy. And when we do that, we're really sort of short-circuiting the whole experience. And there's sort of like a willingness to maybe be wrong that's helpful sometimes as we're asking for help. As Jesus says elsewhere, do you prefer to be right or to be happy? And a lot of us, we want to be right. And a lot of people, when I hear that question asked, they say, well, can't I have both? And I think the point is that you need to want happiness above all else. And then if you are wrong, then you're actually happy that you're wrong, because then you see that that the truth is available to you, and you don't have to have your ideas of what is right and wrong set in front of that.
Exactly. And as it unfolds, you suddenly come to the realization that your answers would have probably resulted in more problems that would unfold or be compounded by your lack of vision. We are still stymied by the fact that we're still relying on our eyes and on the idea of sight. And over again in the Course, we are given this concept of vision, which penetrates the illusion, because it is a vision that encompasses all that is in reality. So through vision, through that gift that the Holy Spirit offers us, we are able to arrive at a point where all of the resolutions and all of the next steps are very clearly revealed, but it only comes as a result of humbling the ego. And that humbling the ego is quite a tenacious challenge for all of us. In this last paragraph, it says, "Forget not that it has been your decision to make everything that is natural and easy for you impossible. If you believe the holy instant is difficult for you, it is because you have become the arbiter of what is possible and remain unwilling to give place to one who knows." So the whole thing really is, very much a Alice in Wonderland kind of adventure. And if you follow the white rabbit, you're going to arrive at a very interesting realm of madness with the Mad Hatter showing up as the leader of the band. But if you don't jump in that rabbit hole, if you can draw yourself back and just be, the simplicity of just being is what will create the avenue out of the maze that you find yourself in on all of these occasions.
Yeah, and I think it fits really well with the rest of this paragraph. The whole belief in orders of difficulty and miracles is centered on this. Everything God wills is not only possible, but has already happened. And that is why the past has gone. It never happened in reality. Only in your mind, which thought it did, is its undoing needful. So, just like you're saying, Chris, we don't have to go back through this maze and fix every last thing within the maze. Ultimately, what we see is that there is no maze, and that all the darkness that we've been shrouded in, that we've been hiding out in, has not one drop of reality to it. And that's the awakening that we're all moving towards. That's the experience of God's love that we're all asking for. And really all we need to do is just stop sticking our fingers in our ears, because the answer is already here. But we might not be quite ready for that. So if we're sticking our fingers in our ears a little bit longer, there's no pressure. There's no push here. This is only something that is here for us when we choose it. And it's not something that's thrust upon us or forced on us. So that's why the section is called A Little Willingness, because it's all about whether or not that we're actually willing to have the experience of the truth of what we are.
Absolutely. And that brings to mind actually a title of a book, but going to that idea of the journey without distance, and that really is the adventure we're all wrapped up in. Is that we're walking and walking and walking and seeing all these things going on around us, and it's like being in Hollywood. In reality, you're on the treadmill, and the projector is putting up all these images of adventure, running through the jungles or whatever around you. But the truth is, you really haven't moved 1 inch in truth or reality. You have just been walking a treadmill, and there's a time when you can come to terms with the idea of stepping off the treadmill and just being in place. And at that space of being in place, suddenly a whole different realm opens up, a whole different understanding of life and its purpose opens up, and a whole different experience of life, down to the smallest details of life, starts to unfold in front of you. So we really are in that position of taking a long, long journey, but really not having gone anywhere at all.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the experience that, a lot of people have had. And if you're driving in your car down the road, usually you're thinking about the fact that your car is moving forward in space. But then every now and then you might click into this feeling of like, no, my car is not moving forward in space. The world is moving towards me and my car is standing still. And it's this perspective shift where we get that in that moment, things are not how we've always perceived them. And I think it's similar with this idea that the world is being made up by us, that it's actually a projection of the mind. And like you said before, is actually a play that is just playing out. That we can, in that moment, switch into this realization that this world is not being done to us, it's being done by us. And that whole mental shift takes us out of the feeling of being a victim, and it puts us back in the driver's seat. So I think that everything that you're sharing here, Chris, just really kind of weaves beautifully into that concept.
Yes, absolutely. And one of my favorite things when I lived out along the Fox River was, especially in the winter, because you get the ice and everything going on. But there's a footbridge that goes across the river, and I would walk out on the footbridge, and if I would stare at one of the pilings that suspended the bridge, the water was splitting around that piling. And initially I was the one who was not moving and the water was moving around me. But then again, when you shift that perception, all of a sudden you're on the bow of a ship and cutting through water and ice, and it's this amazing experience. You're kind of like on the Titanic and feeling like Leonardo DiCaprio or something, but nonetheless, that's the way it really works. And that is, I think, the subtleties about A Course in Miracles that makes life so much more lucid for us, so that we're not just a tumbleweed getting bounced around by the wind and rolling down those dusty roads.
Yeah. I mean, just another way to say the same thing is the Course is all about removing the idea of victimhood, because it's so entrenched in our experience, being the victim, sometimes being the victimizer. But what we realize is it's not possible. That victimhood itself is actually just a part of this whole script. And its purpose is to reinforce or entrench this idea that the separation from God has happened. And we're coming to see more and more that that is impossible, that we are still one with God, and that that is all that we'll ever be, because that is all that is possible.
And that's a brilliant place to perhaps wrap it up today. And then next week we can enter into that magical outcome as a result of putting some effort into not putting effort into the holy instant, which is kind of a little bit of a conundrum in itself.
Yeah.
So
I think it's a great place to end too. And yeah, this has been a really great conversation. Really good to connect with you here, Chris.
yes, it was wonderful, and I'm glad to see you're all refreshed from running through the jungles and drinking out of the coconut, and maybe putting some lime in the coconut. I don't know what you guys were doing down there, but I think it was probably pretty groovy.
Yeah, definitely a great time. Definitely a great time, and glad to be back here too, and in the Midwest for this holiday season that's unfolding.
Well, I will see you in 1 week, and who knows, we may have elves showing up or something of that sort. You know, it's going to be getting closer to that jingle bell stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Jingle, jingle, jingle.
I'll talk to you in a week, Barry.
All right. Bye, Chris.